Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adweek Together. Happy Friday. It is Friday, April 3rd, for those of you keeping track. And this is our daily show, a chance to connect our journalists at Adweek with our readers and viewers. I see already we have people tuning in from New York, California, Egypt, Texas, India, all over. I see you all. I'm so happy that you're here, kind of carving out this time in the day to be together with us. I want to make a quick announcement before I tell you about our special guest today. So next week, starting on Monday, we will be airing this show live at noon Eastern time. So tune in an hour earlier and you'll still be able to watch the show. If you don't catch it live, you'll still be able to catch it on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on adweek.com. So anyway, looking forward to Monday's show. For this show, we have Lacey. She is our senior reporter on our retail team covering Amazon. So Amazon is about 80% of her beat. She has been covering it for a while now. And if we had to give out an award for the busiest person in our newsroom, that would be a competitive award right now, but Lacey would be in the running. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So the big news coming out of your beat this week, just in the last couple of days, is actually coming out of the warehouse in Staten Island. It's Amazon's warehouse in Staten Island, where some of the workers have been striking over conditions. And the worker who organized the strike was dismissed, was let go. Amazon says that they were let go because they violated an order to stay home, self-quarantine. But obviously there's some concerns from the worker that he was let go because of the strike. Can you tell us a bit about why are workers striking there?
Well, it wasn't actually just in New York. It was also, there was a walkout in Detroit, and Whole Foods workers they did a sick out on Tuesday. Instacart workers also, it's not part of Amazon, but they've also walked out. And the gist of it is that they feel like they're not able to do their jobs safely. And, Amazon has made a lot of announcements about the procedures that it's put in place to encourage social distancing, and that it's providing, doing these extensive cleaning jobs inside of the warehouses. But the workers inside say that that's not happening. And one of the retail unions this week came out with a statement that said just that the public relations statements that we're hearing from Amazon don't match what's actually happening inside there. I haven't been inside. I don't know. But you are hearing a number of workers talking about that. A couple of weeks ago, I talked to one employee at a warehouse in North Carolina. She said, that Amazon had recommended what type of masks for them to use, but wasn't providing those masks. And that also that she hadn't really seen much of a difference in terms of cleaning. That there was maybe, an extra thing of Lysol wipes that they'd left out, but really nothing else had changed. That admittedly was a couple of weeks ago, so things may have changed since then, but that's the gist. I think that the workers inside of those facilities who don't have the luxury of working from home, that they're genuinely concerned that they're going to get sick.
Yeah, and I know at least in New York, I think it's 2 warehouse workers have so far been confirmed to have COVID, and I know some of the workers have been asking them to just completely shut down the facility and do a deep clean. Obviously there's a lot at stake there, a lot to be weighed. What has Amazon's response been to all of this?
Well, Amazon, I think just yesterday, one of the SVPs put out a post saying they have a new blog now actually listing or going over every day everything that they've done dealing with this pandemic. And the SVP, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, maybe Dave Clark, said something to the effect, or noted that they'd made 150 distinct procedural changes, maybe more than 150 distinct changes, including the cleaning measures. They do have masks now, so they're starting to distribute those. But part of the Vice story that came out yesterday mentioned, I think, that there was some PR stuff about how they could get some good press for how they distributed those masks outside of the organization. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Sorry,
it's okay. Well, actually, I wanted to ask you, because I know that you have a love of research and a bit of history, and I wonder, is there any historical precedent for this, and particularly in terms of labor conditions and strikes around a time like this? Were there any strikes during the Spanish flu, for instance? I wonder what you found there.
I'm glad you asked. I did talk to a couple of retail historians, and there have been retail strikes throughout history. During the Depression, there was Gimbel's, a department store in New York. The employees there wanted an 8-hour workday. They went on strike. Talked to a professor who said that they released pigeons and mice inside the store as part of the effort. They ultimately get the 8-hour workday, but another professor that I talked to of labor history, specifically at Cornell, she was saying that there really isn't, if you look back throughout the course of history, there isn't a moment like this, at least in the US, where there's been a pandemic like this and the economy has shut down the way that it did. So this is really unprecedented, as people keep saying, but we really can't look back to a historical moment and say, those workers at Gimbel's got the 8-hour day. And so, there's nothing we can infer anyway. Like it's unprecedented. We've never been in a situation like this before.
How do you think Amazon's brand is going to emerge from this? Do you think it will take a hit, given the strikes, or do you think it will, will it come out even stronger than before at a time when it's, shipping sort of vital supplies to people all over the country and world?
That's an interesting question. I feel like, Amazon has a very strong brand. It is the most customer-centric company in the world. It's spent many years training us that we can have whatever we want, whenever we want it, in a matter of hours in some cases, and a day in other cases. And it's beloved by many, many customers. It has 150 million Prime members throughout the world. And it isn't just shopping. They've built in all of these additional perks. So there's, Prime Video, there's Prime Music, there's all of these other parts of it that they've added on to kind of lure you into this ecosystem. And so I think that it would take something truly extraordinary in order for the brand itself to take a hit. The stories coming out of warehouses are certainly not good, but Amazon, these aren't new. We've been hearing about these complaints about working conditions inside Amazon warehouses for years. And I think at the end of the day, consumers really, they say that they'll vote with their wallets, but so far we haven't really seen that. And I think that it would take a pretty extraordinary circumstance for that to happen now. One of the professors I was talking to, and some of the analysts as well, said that, even if enough workers went on strike to shut down an entire Amazon facility, Amazon has so many fulfillment centers in the US, it would not be that difficult for it to simply, route orders through another facility. And so I don't think consumers would see much of a delay in that case. It would take a huge, huge, huge effort to just shut it down completely. And I just don't see that happening. That being said, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what else is going to come out of this. I think it's interesting that Jeff Bezos announced his $100 million donation yesterday. He may have been planning that all along. The timing certainly was coincidental.
And can you say, Lisa, who was the donation to? It was for a food-oriented charity, right?
Yeah, Feeding America, I think. And so, it was nice. It was a nice thing to do. Is that enough to, well, I'm not saying that he was doing it to quiet the bad press, but they may have to do more. Consumers may demand more of it, but in the end, ultimately, no, I don't think. I would be very surprised if Amazon emerges from this with much of a dent in terms of its brand or customer loyalty.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about just adaptation, because I know so many of us, us at Adweek and a lot of our people who are viewing are thinking through how to adapt their businesses, either because they're receiving an influx of demand or decreased demand. We're dealing with it in different ways. But, for Amazon, certainly they've seen their demand increase and also change. The type of things people are buying is really different than perhaps what Amazon was originally set up for. You've got everyone buying toilet paper. versus maybe some of the bigger ticket items they used to go for. So can you give us a sense of how that demand has changed and how quickly they've been able to adapt to keep up with it?
Well, certainly. I mean, customers are ordering online more. They're, both out of panic buying and because they don't want to go outside. And Amazon has responded to this demand by implementing some restrictions in terms of the products that it will accept at its warehouses. So with the third-party sellers that it works with, who are independent sellers, they sell their goods in Amazon Marketplace. Typically, there's a program called Fulfilled by Amazon, which means those sellers send in their products to Amazon warehouses, and then Amazon takes care of the packing and the shipping whenever somebody orders that product. Recently, they've announced that they're going to limit what sellers can send into those warehouses because they want to focus on the high demand products right now. And so, some of the sellers that I talk to, those sellers who send in their stuff every couple of months, they don't have so much to worry about right now. But sellers who are used to sending in goods, say every month, like they're sweating a little bit more. And some of them I talked to have started, instead of relying on Amazon to ship their products, they've started fulfilling their own orders. So they're doing fulfilled by merchants. One of the sellers that I talked to said, even the listings that he has that he's fulfilling himself, the product is listed at a higher price, but customers are ordering it because they can get it faster. So, and really, I think the biggest challenge for sellers at this point is lack of clarity. An email went out last week. Amazon said that they're going to extend the restriction period. It was going to lift as early as April 5th. Now it's going to go beyond April 5th, but we don't know how far beyond April 5th. They said that they are going to loosen some of those restrictions on an item-by-item basis. But again, no one knows what those items are, how they're figuring it out. And so it really is just kind of, they're in wait-and-see mode and crossing their fingers that the items that they sell will be on the list of goods that Amazon is going to allow back into their warehouses so that they they can get back up and running again. I will say that everybody, I think, is extraordinarily understanding that this is, a pandemic, and they're sort of, we're all in this together. But they are also, as a small business, they're hurting.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. So there are sellers and small businesses who are having to basically put their products on the back burner because it's not the most vital need right now. Let's talk a little bit more about the seller perspective, Amazon Marketplace in particular, and you've done a good job of like charting the world of Amazon. But for people who don't know, the marketplace is basically all of the people who are selling products independently on Amazon. So it's not Amazon directly selling the products; it's third-party sellers selling through Amazon. And the marketplace was growing strong last year, and I think I'm assuming it's grown even more this year. Can you give us a sense of how big is that marketplace? How many third-party sellers are out there being affected?
Well, I don't have an exact figure. That's one of the tough things about Amazon. They keep their cards close to their chest. But there's a research firm, Marketplace Pulse, that they track a lot of these things. And in 2019, they said that 1.2 million new sellers joined the platform. As of today, April 3rd, is it 2020, year to date, 223,000, right? New sellers have joined the platform. And so I think that works out to something like 40,000 a day, but don't quote me on that. It's just a huge number of sellers that are joining the platform. And so it's expanding, which makes it very difficult to sort of monitor and control. And, Amazon has these policies in place, and it has, AI tools that are monitoring the listings. But there was a story in the Washington Post yesterday, I think, about how, you obviously can't make, or you're not supposed to make false claims about a product that can fight coronavirus, or kill it, prevent it, whatever. But some sellers have discovered that if they put language about, this will kill coronavirus in the images instead of in the product listing themselves, that then the AI tool that's monitoring it doesn't see that, and then their listing can stay up. So again, I don't want to minimize what Amazon has to do. I mean, it's a gigantic marketplace, but I feel like this is another example of problems in that marketplace. Certainly isn't the first time. And, maybe one of the outcomes from this is that they will have to institute better policies to keep track of what's in there. You had the guy in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago with all the hand sanitizer, selling that at huge markups. I mean, there have been, and Amazon has came up with a task force to deal with these, but it's removing thousands and thousands of these listings, and they keep popping up. It's like when I talked to sellers earlier this year for that story about counterfeits and knockoffs, and every single one of them said it's like whack-a-mole. You report one of the listings, and in the meantime, half a dozen or more have popped up. So it really is just sort of a never-ending job to keep track of what's going on in that marketplace.
Yeah. And I just want to quickly say, for those of you who are tuning in on LinkedIn, if you have a question for Lisa, please feel free to drop it in the comments, and I'll try to pick one out to throw to her before the end of the show. On that, in terms of regulating the marketplace, does Amazon have a stated policy or a stated mechanism for clear price gouging or false claims? Is there a system in place?
They do. I can't quote it off the top of my head, but I think that, whenever I've asked for comments about situations like this, they talk about how they do have comprehensive policies that they strictly enforce. And they do have those policies. I think how they enforce them is maybe up to, what am I trying to say? Like, I don't know if they necessarily enforce them as strictly as they maybe say they do. But again, like, the scope of the marketplace is so vast, it's growing so quickly. And they've said to me before that they have no plans to curb the number of sellers who are joining the platform. They're the everything store. They want to be the everything store. Those third-party sellers have helped them become the everything store. In Jeff Bezos's 2018 shareholder letter, which came out about a year ago, he opened it by noting that those third-party sellers accounted for 58% of physical gross merchandise sales the year before. Use that unfortunate phrase, third-party sellers are kicking our butt. So they're relying on these sellers to be the everything store. Whether or not it can continue going on the way it's been going on, it remains to be seen.
Yeah. I have a comment here, which leads me to a question for you. So Salwa Magdi was making a comment that we need to try to fight unemployment by buying even little things from other factories. And something that's been on my mind is from the shopper perspective. So most of us don't work at Amazon, but I'm assuming many of us are customers. How do we be good citizens and good conscientious shoppers at a time like this? Before coronavirus hit, I know that there were a lot of conversations about, how can you, reduce like your carbon footprint and things like that. How can you, make sure that you're consolidating your Amazon purchases so they arrive one day a week. Now, we also are throwing workers and working conditions into the mix. So when we're out there shopping, do you have suggestions for us on how we can kind of minimize, the risk and the strain on workers and just, on the globe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, like, a lot of us are lucky we can work from home, and I have a 6-year-old son. He's home from school. I don't have to worry about childcare because I can stay here with him. Hasn't been easy, but I can do it. So I think that, especially given all of the concerns that have come from these warehouses, the people who are working there who don't have the luxury of working from home, as consumers, when we've been trained to get absolutely everything from Amazon as quickly as we want it. And so maybe now is a good time to think about, do I really need this? And, Amazon is proudly talking about how it is an essential service and providing goods for people who don't have a way to get them otherwise. And that's definitely true. But to sort of minimize the impact on the warehouse workers who are there and are concerned about what's going on, you can perhaps, like I said, just focus on the essential stuff for now, and not buy as much.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Focusing on buying the essentials or consolidating your purchases. And I'll say too, I mean, this is a little far afield of Amazon, but for myself and my own shopping habits, I've been trying to buy local first, like see what can I get in my neighborhood to keep my local businesses afloat. For example, my favorite coffee shop and bakery around the corner pivoted a couple of weeks ago and turned themselves into a grocery store, which I thought was amazing. They started selling fresh produce just as a way to stay open and a way to stay alive. Mm-hmm. So I make a point to buy all my produce there, you know, or I do my online shopping at perhaps a bigger box retailer. And then the things that I can only get at Amazon, you know, I'll get there. So that's another way, is sort of being strategic about where you're buying what, if you can afford to be. So anyway, Lisa, Lacey, thank you. We could talk for a long time about Amazon, but I think this has been an education. I really appreciate you giving me and also our viewers a window into what's happening there. And I'd love to check back in with you in a few weeks, because I'm sure that this will keep changing. So thank you so much for your reporting and for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And to everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, you made it to Friday, so happy Friday. Monday, we have a great show for you. So again, mark the time is going June Eastern time, starting next week. And we have a special guest that day. Tiffany Warren is going to be joining me on the show. She is the Chief Diversity Officer of Omnicom Group, and she's also the founder and president of AdColor. She's going to announce our champions list, our champions winners on Monday. And this is a group of people who have been sort of pushing diversity forward and reaching back to bring people up in the industry. So I'm excited for that big reveal and for you to find out who's on that list. And she's also going to be talking about a really important topic, the state of D&I, the state of diversity and inclusion amid coronavirus. Some of those programs, I think, are at jeopardy amid funding cuts. So we're going to talk about where that all stands. If you have a question for Tiffany or for me for that show, you can reach us at adweektogether@adweek.com. Again, just send an email to adweektogether@adweek.com. I'd love to hear from you ahead of that show, but you can also email about anything. We're checking that email all the time. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you all have a great weekend. Goodbye.